Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Fearless Generations with Terry Sayer and Kelly Fox.
Hello, and welcome to 12 Steps Fearless Generations, 12 Steps to Freedom. I am Kelly Fox, and I am here tonight ready to talk a little bit more about Step 4, which is compassion. Tonight we're going to be talking about intuition. What does that mean? How does it tie into compassion? What do we do if we don't hear it or if we're afraid of it? All of that good stuff. And my beautiful co-host, Terry Sayer, is not here yet. So we will introduce our beautiful guest coach. She is on the show quite a bit, and we like it that way. Please welcome Trish March.
Hello, Kelly. Thank you for welcoming me on here. I'm excited to be here tonight with you ladies.
We are excited to have you. And tonight you get to talk about something other than integration.
What a nice change.
Yeah, we're switching it up this year. So,
excellent.
Compassion. What is? Tell me about compassion. Well, and first of all, remind our listeners what it is you get to do.
I am a coach and a healer, and I work with individuals who feel beaten down, bottled up, and burned out. And I help them find their inner spark so that they can, decide they can, oh my goodness, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. I can't believe it. So they can reclaim the greatness of who they are.
Midnight.
And that's true. It is midnight my time. So they can reclaim the greatness of who they are and really pursue a life of joy and happiness for themselves or fulfillment in whatever way that is for them.
And how does compassion play into that?
Oh, compassion is one of the largest pieces of that, because when you are in a state, I call them the 3 Bs of despair: beaten down, bottled up, and burned out. You're not feeling compassion for yourself, and it really isn't until you can recognize that and start to experience that you can turn things around for yourself. When you feel beaten down, when you're beating yourself up and, maybe you're getting criticized or judged by other people and you're taking that in and internalizing it, how are you feeling in that state? Are you feeling compassionate for yourself? Not normally.
Probably not.
And if you're bottling up your feelings and stuffing them down inside, is that compassionate?
No.
And if you're burned out, the beating yourself down and bottling your emotions up, leads to burnout. But burnout could be, you're just working so hard. You're overwhelming yourself with responsibility. Maybe you're not being honest with yourself and you're, taking on so much, just trying to, save the world. And, you have to think to yourselves when you're doing these things, are those compassionate? So I think compassion is really one of the things in this world that people do not focus on. They really don't know what it is. And, when you don't have a concept or an idea of what that is and the benefits of it and what it can do for you and what it can offer you, not everybody's, reaching out. They're not, they're not saying, oh, let me be more compassionate to myself, right? So It's almost like, you have to flip that switch a little bit and go from the state you're in to, a state of compassion. But it's not easy, and it's not something that necessarily everybody is used to.
Absolutely.
So it's foundational. It's a foundational building block of, change, of movement forward. It's a powerful place to be, compassion.
Absolutely. How does intuition play into that for you?
I think that, well, for me, I would say that intuition is one of those things that kind of triggers your compassion or can trigger you to start recognizing compassion and maybe looking for it. I feel like in my past I have, when I was in the state of beating myself up, and bottling up my emotions, and I was getting so burned out, it was almost like I had to hit rock bottom. And then when I did that, I heard a voice. I heard a message about being compassionate. It's almost like the voice of God, or the voice inside yourself. Or maybe you intuitively, open a book, to a page and compassion pops up, right? Like, that's kind of how it happened for me, is that, all of a sudden, I was exposed to compassion and, what that could do for me, what it means to be compassionate to yourself, and that for me was a trigger. It was a life changer, because it was, it changed my awareness. And, whether that's through, an intuitive hit, like your body responds to something, whether it's the voice of God inside your head, for me, intuition, that's the intuition piece. That's the connection piece. And for me, intuition is kind of that connection with spirit, right? It's the connection with your body. It's a connection. So, once I hit rock bottom, I was able to recognize the connection and understand more, and get messages about compassion, to get exposed to that intuitively. So for me, intuition is a way of connecting the dots, right? It's, and it's a way of recognizing your body, and how your body talks to you about stuff. It's recognizing your connection with spirit. It's recognizing your connection with your heart. Like, have you ever been in a situation and you've, just wanted love, or you wanted an answer, or you wanted hope, and something happens and your heart responds? It's almost like an intuitive hit that your body gives you, like, yes, this is the direction, this is the thing. So intuition and the way it connects with compassion is just amazing to me, because it can be that one little piece, one little speck of or spark of hope that allows you to recognize that, when you are aware and able to really listen in and tune in, what's going to be supportive to you. Almost the first thing is going to be self-compassion.
Yeah, I love that you said that. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, I mean, I was asking if that made sense, because I sometimes get a little passionate about these things and go around in circles.
Yeah, it is. But I think for me, it's easier for me to listen to my intuition when it's showing compassion to others. Like, I can sense that someone needs a hug, or I can sense that someone needs a kind word, or, just needs me to sit next to them and, be a listening ear. I feel like I'm pretty good at that. Or like, I'll get, all of a sudden one of my friends will come to mind and I'll send them a quick text. And so I can use my intuition that way. But when you were talking about using my intuition for compassion towards myself, I couldn't really think of an instance in my, I can't say that word, where I had used my intuition to show myself compassion. But then you made the comment of when you need a hug. And there are times when I just, I want to cuddle. I just need that closeness, and I'll cuddle up on one of my kids, or I'll ask my husband to come sit next to me, and I just, I cuddle up on him. And so that is me listening to my intuition of when I need compassion. Reaching out to a friend to say, hey, today was a hard day, is me taking action for myself to receive compassion. So,
right. Yeah.
I do see how I use it for myself as well, for that awareness.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think being able to recognize what you need is amazing, but actually being willing to ask for it, or to, be courageous and step up and say, I need this, is, that's fantastic. Like, that's taking that to a whole different level, because, a lot of people may have an idea of what they need, but so many people don't ask, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't ask. So that's a big that's a thing in the process. But it's also a cool thing to figure out, like, what you can give yourself too. Like, I love the whole hugs thing, but have you ever thought, like, you're in a situation and what do you need for yourself?
Mhm.
I mean, that might be something that's not as clear.
Sorry. Mm-mm.
That's okay. What were you saying
Go
again?
Oh, no, finish what you're saying.
I was going to say, like, I was saying that when you have, what could you give yourself for self-compassion? Like, what feels compassionate to yourself? Like, I know a hug is one thing. I love that. But are there things that you can do for yourself, like pampering? So it seems like an obvious thing, but, what else is compassionate to yourself? Like, when you're in a situation, you're beating yourself up, a lot of people, a common thing is to look at a picture of yourself when you're young and, say to yourself, like, hey, would I beat myself up like that? Would I beat this little child up like that? Would I say the words I'm saying to myself to this other person? So it's almost like, having your intuition, tell you what you need, asking for, like, what do I need to feel loved? What do I need to feel to gain that compassion for myself? And it's almost asking your intuition for that, and waiting for the message. But I think, recognizing how your intuition speaks to you is altogether another lesson, or altogether is another skill, right? Did you always know, like, what your intuition says to you, or did you always know? Were you always aware? I guess is the better answer, or better question.
Of what I needed? No.
Well, what's your intuition? Like, how to understand your intuition?
Oh, I don't. I've always been kind of aware of my surroundings.
Okay.
And the energy that's going on. Like, do I need to do something funny to kind of bring the energy up? Do I need to give someone a hug? Do I need to, just kind of things like that? Like, I could kind of sense what was going on emotionally or energy or something like that. Did I always
feel like the
act on it? No. So.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think for a lot of people, like, even recognizing that intuition is challenging, right? Like, they might not take that in. They might not intuit that as easily. I know for myself, like, things would pop into my head, and I didn't actually know what that was. I was like, what is that just popped into my head? Some people, might call it the voice of God. Some people might say it's, messages from spirit. Some people just think it's like, oh, it's just a thought. So to go from it's a thought, oh, it's just something I thought, and move that towards your intuition is takes practice. Takes practice to recognize. So, and I mean, that is a great way to feel.
No, it's okay. I feel like I'm talking over you so much tonight. I apologize. For our listeners that are unaware, there is a little bit of a delay between when she talks and when I hear her. So I'm not purposely talking over her. But I was gonna say that I definitely didn't always act on it, nor did I probably always recognize it as intuition. And I find that as I practiced just doing it anyways, like,
Yep.
is it a thought in my head just for me, or is it my intuition, or is it a prompting from God? Like, if it's something good, just do it anyways. You know, doesn't matter where it came from.
Yep. I love that.
And so the more that I would just act on it, you know, then the more, the easier it became to do so. And to continue to act on them. And, you know, well, I shouldn't say a lot of the time, but sometimes I did, you know, there was this one time where I wrote a card to a friend, and I hadn't intentionally thought, oh, I want to write her a card. I was writing a card. I had this practice of writing a card every week, and she was the one that came up in my mind, and so I wrote the card to her. And, like, months later, she told me that she carried it in her purse with her everywhere because it meant so much to her. That wasn't something that I had any idea was going to happen. I just thought, I'll write this friend today. And and then it ended up, you know, being exactly what she needed that day, right? So
that's awesome.
We don't always get to see what our little acts, you know, are going to turn into. And so, but in that instance I did. And so it also encourages me to act on those little prompts or those little ideas that come to mind. This friend could use some kind words. But other things that I can do for myself when there isn't anyone to interact with are taking a shower or a bath. Those are really, really big self-care, self-love practices for me, to just take like a really long shower and just really just let the water run off of me and take with it whatever it is that is troubling me or on my mind, or to soak in a really warm bath.
Nice.
Is something that I like doing too, especially if I add some salt, some Epsom salt, because I have a tendency to get cramps in my feet. And so when I do that, it helps those cramps not come. And so it's like an extra bonus of taking care of myself. So those are things that I can do with no one here. Or what I have actually been doing recently is making myself food, which kind of sounds ridiculous. But a lot of the times, if I'm hungry, I just snack. And I don't snack on something that's necessarily good for me. But if I actually take the time to go and make myself food, that is a huge act of love and compassion for myself, to allow myself that time and effort and energy to go towards just me feeding myself.
Yeah. That's excellent. Yeah. I would say that, you know, the things that I've been doing, I've, you know, as you know, I've been going through a stressful family time, and I realized that I don't take care of myself when I'm in these situations. So for me, a big act of self-compassion, like today I went to the doctor, and, I made an appointment to get my hair cut on Friday. And, I'm slowly taking the time to take care of myself, because I realize that I don't do that when I'm in these situations. And you know, even my eating I was doing so good with all my eating, and then I flubbed it up the last 6 weeks. And, you know, I'm not judging that. I mean, I know that I didn't follow like my eating plan. So not a judgment there. I'm not beating myself up for it, which is a big change, but knowing that I want to do better. Like that's part of my goal is to do better with my eating. So I'm right there with you with preparing stuff, you know, and not snacking, you know, being a big thing. But for me, self-compassion right now is recognizing that I'm going through a really stressful time, and anything I can do to support my body, support my emotions, support myself mentally is compassionate. And I think intuitively, you know, I have realized that the stress of this situation is gonna burn me out if things don't change. So I'm making a choice to do something different. So intuition is very important.
Yeah, I think when we're going through stressful times, it does make like our normal routines or our thought selves kind of go out the window, right? And those are the times when we need to double up on our self-care. And that's not the first thing that comes to mind, and it's not easy to do. And yet that's when we need even more compassion. And I love that you're not beating yourself up, and but that you're also wanting to take steps to get back on the path of you being committed to you, even though you're giving extra energy to others right now. Because that's not easy to do when you're in the full thrust of, you know, really putting someone else before yourself. But you know, the commitments that we make to ourselves are still and
absolutely
your intuition is what led you to those commitments and is what is leading you back. So it's I totally am there with you. It's self-care has always been a tricky thing for me because I take care of myself, but not necessarily probably in the most productive ways. And so I can beat myself that I'm not doing it in a more productive way. It's an interesting little dance that I do with myself when it comes to what self-care looks like and what I want it to look like and what it ends up looking like. So, but it's definitely important that we take time for ourselves and that we stay committed to those things to ourselves, even in those times of emergency or times of, you know, stress. And maybe the time we give something is lessened, but it's not completely forgotten. You know, there's ways to compromise and negotiate things to allow time for this, you know, this situation you now have before you that you didn't before. And so it's, you know, getting connected with yourself. Like last month, our step was connection, and it takes you connecting with yourself to really know what that is. And hear your intuition and know where do you want to step forward in that.
Yeah, it's very important. And I do have to say that self-compassion comes up in a lot of different ways because, you know, it's not just the self-care that I'm doing. Like I I legit, these last 6 weeks, I just feel, and pardon my French, like a complete badass. I have done things that I never thought that I would have to do, and taking care of my father. And, I just feel more myself probably than I have felt in a really long time. Even though I'm like under a ton of stress, I'm not sure what it is, but intuitively I feel like a complete badass. And I haven't felt like this in a really long time. And I was like, holy, I'm like, so for me, the compassion is recognizing that and allowing myself to be proud of myself for doing, taking the measures that I've taken, and, congratulating myself or acknowledging myself for being courageous, for being bold and stepping forward, and, just, recognizing it, acknowledging it, and really embracing it. The whole, like, my whole sovereignty is, like, living my life. Like, I am in, and I shared this with my dad last night. He had a dream. He had a dream that something bad happened to him in this dream, and I was like, Dad, I'm like, you are in control. Like, when you're in this dream, like, if something happens that you don't like, change it. If something's going on and you feel like you might get hurt and you're afraid, change it. I'm like, you are completely in control of what's happening in your dream. And like, that's not anything I would have thought before. But I was like, he wants to be safe, and the only way you can do that is to. And I'm not saying like control is the thing, but you are the master of your own destiny, right? And so that's what I'm saying. Like, if he's in this dream and he feels like there's something happening to him, I'm like, change it. It's a dream. It's not like the reality of the situation. It's a dream. So, but intuition is the thing that helps me get these words. It helps me, share, and be compassionate with my father. He's in a situation that he's, unsure of. So I'm counting on my intuition to help lead me through some of these situations. And, when stuff comes up like that, I'm like, yes. I'm like, that is the exact thing he needed to hear, because he said it back to me today. I'm like, did you have any dreams last night? He's like, no. And I'm like, well, that's good. I'm like, are you okay from last night? He's like, yes, because I am in control. And I was like, all right, that's good. That's so good.
That's so good. Well, Miss Trish, we are out of time.
Oh, my goodness. It went fast.
I know.
And we didn't even have Terry here sharing it with us.
I know. It doesn't. We can talk all night. So
yes, we could.
Why don't you tell our listeners how they can get a hold of you?
Well, you can reach me at trishmarch.com or on Facebook. I'm also on Facebook as Trish March. I don't have any activities going on right now because I'm really focused on my father and his care, but I am hoping to kickstart my coaching, like a coaching group and some programs later on this year after I get his world settled and mine settles down a little bit, and I allow myself to be compassionate a little bit with myself. But I would love to hear from anybody who's listening, and anybody who would like to connect. I would love to connect with you. So please reach out.
Yes, and do feel free to advertise when you have those things going in the group so that our listeners and myself know what's going on. We thank you so much for being here with us.
Of course, I love
being here. Yep, go ahead.
No, I was just saying I love being here with you ladies. I missed Terry tonight, but it was great to connect with you.
Thank you. We want to remind you that the 12 Steps to Freedom were created by the CEO and founder of the Fearless Living Institute. If you would like to know more about Fearless Living, go check it out at fearlessliving.org. You can find Terry and I at fearlessgenerations.org, and we have all new workshops that we're doing this year, so go check them out under virtual workshops, and you can find out about those there. The next one we have coming up is the 4th Monday of this month, and we're going to be talking about expectations. So go check that out. And all of that is on the website and across the social media platforms. So we are grateful for you guys all coming out. And until next week, be fearless.
Be fearless. Bye, Kelly. Thank you.
Bye.